Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a tier ranking of every book that I read in 2020. I got this idea from a booktuber called Life Worth Reading, and I'm gonna link her in the description down below. I thought this was a great idea. It was a super fun alternative to just listing off every book I read in 2020. Since I made my booktube in January of this year, there's a lot of books that I read last year that I never really got the chance to talk about. So this is going to be a super fun way for me to get all that out of my system. So I'm just going to go ahead and get started. So here are my tiers. I have, the first tier is Incomparable. These are books that I just really cannot compare to other books, and they're for different reasons. So there's a different odd cast, if you want to say, of books that I'm going to put into this section, but bear with me, I'll explain them when they go in there. The next one is a work of art. These are books that I absolutely loved, I adored. I think they're a true work of art. They're perfect in every way. The next one is an A+ twist section. This one is mainly for thrillers that just have an awesome twist at it. I think that's what really defines a great thriller. And something could have a great twist and be a great thriller novel, but not be like the best book of all time. So that's what this category is for. A thoroughly enjoyed category for books that weren't necessarily, in my opinion, a work of art, but I really loved reading them and I had a good time. Then there's the I read it category of I read it, I liked it, but I don't really think about it much anymore and I don't really remember any strong feelings about it. And the last category is the We Were Rooting for You. There's a few books that I really wanted to like, I heard great reviews about, and I tried really hard, but they did not do it for me, and I did not like them at all. So let's get started. The first book on here is Ninth House, which if you watched my Top Books of 2020 video, you were going to know I already love this book so much. The dark academia, forbidden, magic, murder mystery, secret society vibes. It was just flawless. It was perfect. I love this book so much. I am going to be rereading it this year for sure because it was just so enjoyable. I had a great time reading it. Next is Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. I think I read 3 Harry Potters this year. I'd read the other 4 at the end of last year. These ones are incomparable just because they're so good. Such an essential part of my childhood. I was obsessed with Harry Potter. I still love it now just because it was such an important part of growing up. I have Harry Potter tattoo. I'm planning on getting many more Harry Potter tattoos in the future. I just absolutely adore this series. So yeah, it's just not, you can't really compare it to any other normal book that you're reading because it's just reached a very high level in regards to I read it as a child and have just loved it ever since. So next, Daisy Jones and the Six. I really loved this book. A lot of people loved this book, gave it 5 stars. I didn't think it was that good, but I really had a good time reading it and I enjoyed it. So this is going in thoroughly enjoyed. Next book is, these aren't in chronological order, by the way. They just put them in a random order and I kind of like it that way. Kind of surprises me, keeps me on my toes. So, Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. This is going in Incomparable. This one was actually a surprising favorite. I love the 3rd and the 4th book, and I knew I loved those 2. But the 6th book, I forgot how much of a vibe it was. I love potions. I like to tell myself that I would be amazing at potions if I went to Hogwarts. Then I remember that I was really awful at chemistry in college, and so I probably wouldn't do well, but I like living out that fantasy through the 6th book. The next is Happy and You Know It. This book was so fun. I really liked this book. I picked it up wanting kind of a Big Little Lies vibe, and that's exactly what this gave. It's like Big Little Lies, but without the murder, but it's rich Instagram moms, and it's so good. there was actually quite a few twists that I did not see coming or expect at all. And it was a really good time. I really enjoyed this book. It's by no means the best book of the year, but it was definitely a really fun read. So that's going in thoroughly enjoyed. Leave the World Behind. I got this from Book of the Month. Most of these books you're going to notice are on Book of the Month because your girl loves a bargain, and I could not beat getting 3 hardcover books for $35 every month. And so if it wasn't on Book of the Month last year, I probably wasn't going to read it because it was just too good of a deal to pass up. So I read Leave the World Behind. People on Book of the Month didn't really like this one that much, and I think that's because they were expecting it to be like an end of the world thriller. That's not what it was at all. It's very much more of a commentary on what our reactions would be to an apocalyptic event happening the end of the world. You don't get heavily explained what is happening in this novel ever, so sorry, that might be a spoiler, but don't go into this expecting a really intense, complex, interesting theory on how the world could end, because that's not what this book is about. It's really about how our everyday habits we would kind of cling to and how we would try and cope and keep normality in the face of a apocalyptic event. And I enjoyed it. It's going in thoroughly enjoyed. It almost goes in I read it, but I don't know. I'll put it in I read it. I did enjoy it, but it was fine. There were some really weird sexual parts in it that were just a little bit too much of a male gaze for me. I thought were kind of unnecessary. Yeah. Speaking of male gaze, we have this Shining by Stephen King, which was a really good book. If it wasn't for the weird male gaze that was in it and the kind of racist undertones when referring to a black character in this. But the story was really good. It was very different from the movie, which I did not expect, and I did really enjoy the story. I just kept getting tripped up by those less enjoyable parts, but I'm going to put this in thoroughly enjoyed because for the most part, I really liked this book, and it really creeped me out and gave me the spooks. Next is The Lovely Bones. I have surprisingly gone all this time with never reading the book, never seeing the movie, and never having any spoilers about this book. So I went ahead and read it. It was good. I really liked the analysis of grieving over the death and the tragic, violent death of a loved one. I liked it from that point, but honestly, I haven't really thought about it much since I've read it. So it's going in. I read it. Next is the first graphic novel I've ever read, Raven. I really liked this for the art. I found it because I found this artist on Twitter that did really cool drawings of Teen Titans as modern teens, which Teen Titans was my favorite show growing up. I was absolutely obsessed with it, and specifically Raven. And I found that he illustrated these graphic novels. There's one out about Raven, there's one out about Beast Boy, but this year, one is coming out called Beast Boy Loves Raven, and it's all about them as a couple, which is just going to fulfill every childhood dream that I've ever had. So I read this for the background knowledge to read that book that's coming out this year. So I liked it. I enjoyed it. It's going in thoroughly enjoyed. Honestly, just mostly for the art because it was so good. Fifth Harry Potter definitely goes in here. Definitely my least favorite Harry Potter. If it goes on, just too much awkwardness. Harry's too angsty as a teen, for my opinion, but still incomparable on its level to other books. Little Fires Everywhere. I read this and I remember really enjoying the themes that were in this book, but honestly, I didn't have any really strong emotions or attachments to this book, and I don't think about it that much now that I've read it, so it's going in. I read it. Mexican Gothic. This book was on my top books of 2020 list. I loved this book so much. The vibes were perfect. It was a spooky, creepy setting, a bunch of twists. A lot of people didn't like where the book went because it was a really weird twist, but I loved it. It was awesome for me. I thought it was great and truly a work of art, in my opinion. Sharp Objects. I read this book. It was really good. It is a massive, massive, massive trigger warning for self-harm that I did not expect at all and was very shocked at. But other than that, the twists in this book were unbelievable. It was very good in that point. I probably won't reread it. If you're not sure if you want to read it because of the trigger warnings and you're kind of on the fence, I would definitely recommend watching the TV series because that's much less of a central part. It's still very prevalent, but it's much less of a part in the series, and you'll still get the twists that happen. So that's what I think about that. It goes in the excellent twist category. Home Before Dark by Riley Sager. I read this and I was so disappointed. I wanted to love it so bad, but I did not feel attached to the characters. I honestly did not care what happened to them by the end of the book. I was really disappointed with it. And while we're at that, we'll pick up Lock Every Door by Riley Sager. It was the same thing with this one. I wanted to like both of these two so bad, but I didn't connect with the characters. By the end of Lock Every Door, people were like, oh, the twist was so... I didn't care. I honestly could not care less what happened to these characters. I was so not attached to them. I really wanted to love these, but unfortunately, I did not enjoy them. And I don't know if I'll be reading another Riley Sager again. The premise of both of these books had so much potential, but it did not do it for me. Next, I read The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. This book was really good. Somehow, I went into it not realizing the massive trigger warning for suicide. Really, really, really massive trigger warning for that. But other than that, it was a really beautiful work of art. I definitely want to read Sylvia Plath's poetry. It was really good. I'm putting it in work of art just because I think it's a classic. And her writing, her thought process that she describes through it is really a masterpiece, in my opinion. And in a lot of people's opinions, I'm just kind of following the main. Next up, The Chestnut Man. This was an excellent book. It was a really good thriller. It was long, kind of a slow burn. I really liked it. An awesome twist. It is being made into a Netflix show, I know, and I'm excited to watch that when it comes out. The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. I loved this book. It was a work of art, easily. It was so good. It was lyrical. The writing style was amazing. It was like a completely surreal experience, and that being in so much of the setting in France, which is just something that I'm a huge sucker for. It was unbelievably magical. I loved it so much. I will be rereading it again several times in my life, I think. The Night Swim. This book was good. I enjoyed it at the time. I think it was a good thriller. It definitely doesn't deserve to be with Sharp Objects and The Chestnut Man, so I'm going to put this in thoroughly enjoyed. These Violence Delights. I really loved this book. I can't really remember there being a legitimate reason for loving it, but I remember when I read it, I loved it. I was so attached to the characters. I cannot wait for the next one to come out. I think it maybe comes out this year. I know it's called Our Violent Ends, I believe, and I'm really excited for that. This is the first YA novel I think that I've read in my adult reading life, and I really enjoyed it. I loved it, and it's going in work of art. I don't know why, but that's what my heart is telling me. Things in Jars. This was recommended on Reagan's channel, Peruse Project. I was really excited for this. I thought it was going to be a great fall vibe book. I did not like it. It's a very specific vibe, and I was not in the mood for that. It's very quirky, almost like steampunky, Victorian oddities. It is someone's jam. Some people are gonna absolutely love this book. I was not in the mood for it, and I finished it just for the sake of knowing the ending, and I really didn't enjoy it that much. But I know that there are people that will, and I'm happy for them. Sadly, they're not me. The Vanishing Half, a bunch of people love this book. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really good. I enjoyed myself while reading it. I thought it was a beautiful story, covered beautiful things. It's going and thoroughly enjoyed. Watching You, this book, a lot of it is about this woman that moves to this town and meets this man who may or may not be involved in some evil things, and she starts kind of pining over him, and she's newly married, and I was not down for that. I just did not really like her considering cheating on her husband with this guy, so that wasn't really my vibe. There was other aspects and other points of view that you were in. There was some Asperger's rep in it that I really loved, I thought was awesome, and I was almost really mad about this book. And make sure you read it all the way to the end, because then once I got to the end, the last sentence of the last page, everything was read. I was like, you know what? Okay, Lisa Jewell, okay, you get a pass. I was almost really mad about where this book went, but it was okay. So I'm putting it, and I read it. I wouldn't say I enjoyed it because I did not enjoy myself reading it, but at the ending, I was slightly satisfied, so it goes in there. The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. This book just goes in the incomparable section because I truly did not know what it meant to absolutely love a book or to read, say this is one of the best books I've ever read before I read this book. This series completely changed my entire view of how good it is possible for a book to be, because these are amazing. They're incredible. High fantasy, a very complex magic system world. I loved it so much. I'm still loving it. And I feel bad comparing it to other books because it's just on a completely different level. So it goes in incomparable with the Harry Potters. The Guest List by Lucy Foley. This was an honorable mention in my Best Reads of 2020, and I loved this book. A lot of people weren't crazy about it. I loved it. This was one of the first thrillers that I've ever read, so that might have to do with it, but I thought that the multi-POV was awesome. The twists, the way everything tied in together was awesome. Overall, the vibe was perfect. I just had such a fun time reading this spooky, stormy story on a deserted island. It was really fun. I loved it. I think it was great. So it goes in work of art. Winter Counts. This book was really good. I was surprised by it. It is about an indigenous tribe and a man that kind of works as a vigilante justice in his tribe. It was really good. It was so informative. I was really surprised. And at the end of the book, it actually has a lot of recommendations for nonfiction books about indigenous problems with law enforcement in the U.S. government. And I thought it was awesome. It was really insightful into an area of life that I had no idea about for indigenous people. So this is going in work of art. I really liked it. I can't wait for this author to come out with more stuff because it is going to be an instant buy for me. Next is Brandon Sanderson, Words of Radiance. Who would I be kidding if this didn't go right up there with Incomparable? I love this even more than Way of Kings. It was awesome. I have not a single bad thing that I could possibly say about these two books. And last but not least is Violent Bent Backwards Over the Grass, which is Lana Del Rey's poetry book. I love Lana Del Rey so much, and I loved this book. I am in no way a unbiased reviewer of this because I love Lana Del Rey. I can tell that she poured her heart and soul into this, and I just really enjoy it for her. So definitely not an accurate rating because I have a pretty big bias, but this is going in Incomparable just for that reason that I'm super biased. I loved it. If anyone has any poetry recommendations, I would really love to get into poetry. I think it's a super fun thing to just kind of read in the afternoon. It's a whole vibe. And so I just like it. And this is my total complete tier, and it's actually a lot more positive than I thought it was going to be. We have a nice little, a lot of works of art, a lot of thoroughly enjoyed. Yeah, it was a pretty good reading year. I didn't read a ton of books, but this was definitely the most books I've ever read in a year. And I think that this next year is going to be awesome, and I can't wait to make this video again for my 2021 books. So let me know what you guys think. Leave your comments down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. I'm now uploading videos every Monday and Friday at 11 a.m. EST. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Bye!